I got a special guest here coming up. I mean, we go back to 2007, beginning of the Big Ten Network days. He's on the football side. I was on the basketball side. And we were laughing at how many people were in the room as analysts and play-by-play and whatever. But I want to welcome in Charles Davis, CBS analyst, doing his thing, NFL football. But my man, we were just talking about the time was 07. Man, how fast. It was that 16 years ago, 17, almost 17 years ago when we started at the Big Ten Net. Man, where'd the time go?
I wish I knew, Jimmy. I really wish I knew. And look, you were coming off of your NBA career, having been an outstanding college player. You're in the College Basketball Hall of Fame already. Look, when we got to that room at the Big Ten Network, and I remember looking out there and looking across that expanse of people, it's like going to camp, right? Who's going to be here when it's all said and done? Who's going to be around when it shakes down? And all I thought to myself is, I want to be around. So I hope that I do pretty well at this thing. I mean, they did so many things for us at first. You remember we went bowling?
Yes. They did the
bowling.
For the
camaraderie deal. And I think we all broke up into different sports, right? The football guys here and the basketball guys here. And you were one of the top guys coming in. I had been hired as the lead analyst. And it was very interesting because the competitive side comes out in everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was playing nice, but at the same time, everybody wanted to try me because I was the so-called lead analyst. And my career probably didn't stack up to what they thought their careers were.
Yeah.
I had to get them. We were bowling. I had to get them, and I did, just so I could make sure I could maintain some semblance of respect. Because it certainly felt like they wanted a piece of it.
Listen, see, that's that competitive nature. And see, you know what's interesting, but you had the background coming in regard. I had it in regards to going, on some shows and talking during the playoffs and doing a radio, but not the actual, sitting down in the analyst chair all the time or doing games. So I was kind of green, but I was learning. The thing that I did, Charles, at the time, I hired a broadcast agent. I mean, not an agent, a broadcasting coach.
Okay.
To kind of help walk me through the nuances of what the difference was between studio shows and what the difference between doing a game, because I didn't know anything from that perspective. But the competitive nature, we had so many people who were analysts at the time at my position. I'm sitting there trying to figure out, okay, how do I separate myself? How do I do my job? What's going on? And eventually we both kind of weaved our way through it and was able to knock down the competition and kind of have some staying power. But man, it was a crazy time if you think about it.
It was. And I think that what we're talking about, and I hope all of our old colleagues who happen to listen and watch, this isn't us sitting up there going, hey, look what we've done.
No.
We've had some good fortune along the way. We've put the work in. And what you were talking about, Jimmy, when you were coming in, you were learning, you did something that maybe other people might not do. You hired someone to help you, just like you would have a coach help you get better, a trainer help you get your body right, a nutritionist for what you were going to eat so that you could be at your best when you were playing. You took every opportunity to find a way to get better. I tried to do the same thing, but there's such a balance in our jobs because I come at it as a okay college player, right? Didn't make it in the NFL and trying to make it as far as I can broadcasting. Well, coming off the career that you had a resume that spoke to, hey, I need to listen to what this guy has to say, but you're trying to figure out how to say it the way that you want to. So once you figured that part out, to go with your resume as being one of the outstanding players out there, now you mash it all together. Flip over to me. I wasn't one of the outstanding players, so people weren't saying, hey, he was All-American. He was, All-Pro. So I've got to get it right from my side from the beginning. It's a mashup. Which way do you come from it? And then, as I said before, you've got to have some good fortune. You've got to have someone who believes in you. And you've got to be with people who respect what you do and give you an opportunity to make your mistakes. Because I made a ton of them.
Right.
Still am.
Yep.
But also a chance to get better as we go along and hopefully find our groove. So it's a heck of a balance. It's a heck of a deal. But I'm so happy for you. I don't want to be condescending, but JJ, I am proud of you. because you have fashioned yourself into one of the elite broadcasters out there, one of the elite analysts out there. And when you and Brian Anderson come on during the NCAA tournament, it's magic, man.
No, I appreciate it. I enjoy listening to you, too. I learned so much. And I'm a huge football fan, of course. And we were at Big Ten, at Fox, and now you're at CBS over there. I'm kind of somewhat CBS TNT when it's, Turner when it's down for the tournament. And you said something key about getting better, fashioning, winning. Today was big news in the NFL as I transition over to what happened with the Buffalo-Houston Texans deal. In your mind, with Stefon Diggs now making the trek down south a little bit to the AFC South, how does that shift the dynamics of the AFC?
It just makes Houston that much better. They were already getting there, Jimmy, as you well know. The season they had last year, remember, DeMeco Ryans last year, when he started the season as the head coach, he was their fourth head coach in 4 years. Think about that. 4 and 4. 3 straight starting the season as a brand new head coach, okay? So they had also done a good job drafting that we hadn't really taken note of. Nick Caserio is the GM. Those players were on the roster and getting better. But he galvanized the crew, brought it all together, and they drafted CJ Stroud as quarterback.
Right.
And he was exceptional. No matter how you rated him, whether you thought he's the best one coming out, the number 2 guy coming out, that's what it was. It was him and Bryce Young. However you rated him, it didn't matter. You knew he was a great talent. But to show what he showed as a rookie, I don't know that anyone thought that we were going to see that right out of the gate. And I remember going down there, and the first time we did a Texans game, myself, Ian Eagle, Evan Washburn, and our crew, we were told by multiple people there, by veterans, that CJ Stroud could have been elected captain of the team after the second day there. They believed in him, felt it that much, and it only kept getting better. Now, Nico Collins, the wide receiver, had a breakout year last year. You get Tank Dell, the exceptional rookie, back after a broken leg. And they're going to add in Stefon Diggs. They're the defending champions of the AFC South. They're going to go in as the prohibitive favorites of the AFC South. But the one thing they must keep in mind, the last 2 prohibitive favorites, Tennessee, had the division locked up at midseason, blew it, lost the division 2 years ago. Last year, the prohibitive favorite was Jacksonville. Had the division locked up at midseason, blew it, didn't make the playoffs as well. Make sure you run the entire race. But right now, if you're talking about the AFC South, you're talking about Houston, and you're talking about Houston making some big noise in the playoffs because they have that type of a team.
Well, speaking about CJ Stroud, you talked about the intangibles of his leadership style, his maturity. Is there something else that stood out to you that maybe surprised you, despite you kind of doing your research and watching him and seeing him play on the college level, that he was able to transfer on the pro side?
Jimmy, I think it was when you watched him in college, you didn't see as much of certain things that you would see in other quarterbacks. Were they asking him to do it? Could he do it? Was he capable? The answer turned out to be yes, and it was all there on tape in college, but you might have to look for it a little bit more. The ability to get out of the pocket and not just keep a play alive and throw it downfield, which you saw, but the ability to take off and go and hurt people running the football. If you plugged in his Northwestern tape of his last year at Ohio State, you would see it there. The ability to make those throws and bring people back in comebacks late. Well, you weren't going to see much of that at Ohio State. The Ohio State University. Because they were usually mashing people. Or many times that he had to lead big-time comebacks. We saw that ability. It was on tape. Go see the Georgia game in the college football playoff, but you didn't see much of it. That's what we're seeing. And the interesting part is we're seeing it this year with the same types of questions from his biggest rival, as you guys would call it, that school up north, J.J. McCarthy, because he wasn't asked to do a number of things. They were mashing people, and people wonder if he can do certain things. By the way, it's all there on tape. You just have to go watch it and find it, similar to what we had with CJ Stroud. And now he expanded it as a rookie, and he's going to take it much farther now as he starts his second season.
You know what's interesting about this trade is this, that you give up Stefon Diggs, you give up a couple draft picks, but you only receive if you're Buffalo one in return. Were you surprised that no bodies came along with that or another player? Or does this indicate something a little bit different in regards to Buffalo saying, it was just time to move on?
I wasn't very surprised, Jimmy, for this reason. I do believe Buffalo is trying to shed some salary cap numbers, trying to get younger in what they're doing. And the draft picks that you get back, you can utilize them and build a younger team and a quote-unquote cheaper team. Now, as soon as I say cheaper, people are like, oh, does that mean they're just trying to – no. Meaning your salary cap isn't taken up by your bigger numbers, because in Buffalo, the salary cap is taken up by who? Josh Allen. Has to be. He's your quarterback. He's going to get that type of number. How can you fashion a team around him with his contract to compete at the highest level, a la Kansas City? Right? Mahomes getting the big money, but it's a flexible contract, and they always seem to find the money to get the players that they need to continue to compete. Yep. That's what Buffalo's trying to do as well. Brandon Beane's one of the best GMs out there. So he's figuring this thing out. He knows where he wants to go. All the talk for the last few years about is Stefon Diggs happy or not happy, I think it got confirmed by the trade. We know he wasn't super happy, and Buffalo's ready to try it again. But you're building around Josh Allen, and maybe you don't have the greatest receivers in the world. Didn't we say that about Kansas City the last 2 years?
We did.
Made it work.
Yep.
And they built a defense that could play. Not play with a 14-point lead, but a defense that could shut people down. They've won the last 2 Super Bowls. I think Buffalo's going to work somewhat in that vein, because right now their top receivers, either Khalil Shakir or recently they got Curtis Samuel. Guess what? They don't have a receiver on the roster that's ever had a 1,000-yard season. It sounds a lot like what Kansas City's dealt with the last 2 years. They found a way. Josh Allen, here's your opportunity, and I think that he'll seize it.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because you're part of the NFL Network's draft coverage coming up this year. So from a receiving, we have your mock draft on here, and at 28, you have – who you have right here? I'm trying to look at.
Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU.
Exactly. So is this something you already knew? Huh?
No,
Charles, I know you're insightful. I know down at Tennessee, that great education. But the timing and everything, you got it right there. Brian Thomas, you talked about receiver finding somebody. This trade happens at 28. Here it is. Is this what you're talking about as far as building up in that receiving core, spending money, getting through the draft?
Well, Double J, if I were that smart, you and I would be having a conversation somewhere else on some island somewhere.
See, there you go. There you go.
If I was that smart. No, listen, even before the trade with Stefon Diggs, before trading him out of there, wide receiver was a priority for Buffalo, because remember, Gabe Davis is no longer there.
Right.
He ended up going to Jacksonville. They've been trying to replace Cole Beasley's productivity. His last full season there, his best year, he was second-team All-Pro from the slot. So they've been trying to recreate that. And I've put Brian Thomas there because a second receiver to go with Diggs at that time was what you were looking for if you were Buffalo. And you're trying to find a guy who can handle the Buffalo winter and be productive in November, December, January. Big frame kid, plenty of room to grow, can go to the next level. Because remember, he was wide receiver 2 at LSU behind Malik Neighbors, who will probably go in the top 10 picks of the draft. So that's why I had him going. Can that still stick? Of course it can. But by the time Buffalo gets there, if there's a run on receivers, don't be surprised, Jimmy, if they pivot off of a receiver, if they don't get a guy that they think can be wide receiver 1, meaning take over, be the dominant guy from the beginning. If they get there and all those receivers are gone, they can pivot and go to the defensive side of the ball. They need help in the secondary. Go get a corner like Kool-Aid McKinstry out of Alabama and keep building from there. Sean McDermott, by the way, where'd he make his bones? Defensive
coordinator, right.
And he's running his own defense now. They can get that shutdown defense and can continue that. That'll help Josh Allen, that offense, while they have a chance to grow.
Well, we all know, too, as much as we do, as you do, and the experts do, whether it's whatever sport in the draft, is an inexact science. You have high draft on the board and say, these players should translate well into the NFL, NBA, MLB, whatever it may be, but they don't. But then there's always some sleepers. Give me a name or two with your research within the draft that you say, you know what, you need to keep your eye on.
Well, there's a running back out of New Hampshire named Dylan Laube, Laube, that is this little guy who can run it, catch it, the whole deal. Not going to wow you with his speed. He's probably around a mid 4.5 guy. But you plug on tape against the bigger schools they played, he's catching 14 balls against a Power 5 team and scooting it downfield. He's not going to go in the first round. He's not going to go in the second round. I don't expect him until day 3, which is rounds 4 through 7. But I'll be surprised if he makes someone's roster and can really flat out play. All right, that wouldn't surprise me at all. There's a guard at South Dakota State named Garrett Greenfield, that when you see him in his uniform and his pads, and the way there's like almost a neck roll there, which no one wears anymore. Well, there's an all-pro guard in Cleveland who wears his uniform exactly the same way named Wyatt Teller. And Greenfield has shades of Wyatt Teller to me. South Dakota State, opportunity to pop up and be one of those guys. Okay, so there's a couple there for you. Obviously, we can dig even deeper as we go. There's a corner out of Virginia State, HBCU, named Willie Drew, that got a lot of attention, went to the Senior Bowl. Didn't work out at his scheduled pro day. Supposed to work out at another time. But he could be one of those day 3 sleepers that all of a sudden you look up. Everson Walls came out of an HBCU called Grambling. HBCU. Right. Was not drafted by the Cowboys in early 1980s. You know what he did his first 2 seasons in the NFL? 9 interceptions, 11 interceptions, all pro first 2 years out of the gate. And he wasn't even drafted. So as you pointed out, it's an inexact science. You know what you like. You hope that it translates, and you hope that they hit the right system and find a place to play.
Well, I know what is it exact science is your expertise on kind of weaving your way through the draft, what you do on TV, and also that once all of this is done, my man is going to be right back on that golf course. Look at that hat you got on right there. I know you're salivating to get out there and enjoy your summer playing, so I appreciate the time, brother. It's always great catching up. The insight has always been, on 100. Love everything else. And that hat, man, can I get somebody you got the Tennessee on, okay? Shout out
We're
to
so close, Double J.
Shout out to
congratulations to Purdue. They earned it. But Dalton Connect, young man, you almost got it home.
Listen,
we almost got there.
We got a connection though. Chucky Webb, Jeremy Lincoln.
Sir.
Jeremy Lincoln.
Hey, Chuck Webb
out of Toledo. I grew up with him. Went to Tennessee.
There with Reggie
Cobb Webb.
We called it Cobb Webb, and those
Webb.
2 ran people into submission. And Jeremy Lincoln, that's my little brother, okay? And to see him develop, become a Pro Bowl corner, and now still giving back to all those kids out there that he's training day in and day out, I couldn't be more proud of him, and I couldn't be more fortunate that I know him. How lucky am I?
No, bro, it goes both ways. And Jeremy speaks highly of you, too. So, listen, this summer, hopefully you down in Orlando, the big-time golf course. You can invite me down to play, I even pick up and pay for a little water or something.
Waiting for you. Open invitation room's waiting for you. You come on down. And, by the way, don't call me next Wednesday. There's a possibility I might be walking the 1 through 18 at Augusta on practice day. It's just a possibility. I'm not saying I am.
Dude, drop the mic. Drop it. Drop it. I love it, man. Hey, man. Well, enjoy it from me, man. Best of luck during the draft, too. Love you, too, brother. All right. Thank you.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.